right, welcome to Real Estate Investor Talk, and I'm Neil Peterson, founder of Real Estate Investor. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Jenny Ellinas. She's the founder and CEO of Cypriot Realty, and they are a bespoke advisory service to assist you investing offshore property in Cyprus with permanent residency or second citizenship or relocation. Jenny, thank you for joining us today.
Great. Hi, Neil, and hi to all of your viewers and your loyal readers. It's always good to be part of such an exciting publication, and I know you are just in the forefront of being able to offer the best advice and tips and tricks to anybody who's wanting to dip their toe into the offshore market. And I'm here to share a little bit more about Cyprus.
Wonderful. Great. And just for our viewers there, you can actually see in the foreground, there's Jenny. She was on our last month's Master Investor feature. So if you need to read more about that, there's lots more information in that edition and, of course, the upcoming editions of Real Estate Investors. So we're doing a whole series on that. So if you want to look for that. So Jenny, maybe let's go into a bit of a Q&A. Maybe just share a little bit more about your background, what led you to embark on your journey in the real estate and particularly in Cyprus and with Cypriot Realty.
Yeah, great. So Neil, my journey started in 2008 when I was already looking around at some different options. Before that, I had a couple of blue chip corporate jobs where I was playing the 9-to-5 space. And I was looking really to maybe dip my toe into the investment realm, looks at something offshore with the view to eventually relocate and possibly do something on a meaningful level, maybe even set up a business. In 2008, down in Cape Town at the International Convention Center, they had an offshore expo. And I was kind of walking around all the stands and picking up all of the brochures. And there was Cyprus, which I'd never ever thought about as an option. And I picked up a number of brochures, and there they had an option to do a property inspection tour. And I jumped on a plane, went across, had a look, and literally, Neil, within 48 hours, I phoned my husband, who didn't come on the trip with me, and I said, right, 3 things are changing. Number one, I'm resigning from my blue chip corporate job. I want to start a company where I believe I can help fellow South Africans have a plan B, possibly relocate, but buy in real estate in Europe. Number two, he had 5 years to disinvest his huge big construction company where he was building for the multi-millionaires down on the Camp Space Strip. And the third thing I said to him, I just love this country so much, I can see myself growing old and actually dying in the country through relocating there and not necessarily in South Africa. And I think by that stage, he was watching SuperSport, maybe he was bolt upright, and he said, what's going on? So that was the start of my journey. I came back from my inspection trip of looking at real estate options in Cyprus after I'd done my spreadsheet and looked at all of the different countries, the language issues, getting across, if I wanted to set up a company, what were the tax implications, how easy would the property purchase process be, and that was it. So it was the start of the journey, and I think by that stage was sitting bolt upright and thought, okay, this girl's serious, we got to do something. So I came back, I resigned, I started Cypriot Realty, and in fact you were the first publication I ever placed one of my first ads in, promoting the brand, looking at Cyprus, and it's been an amazing journey, Neil. I mean, I've met some wonderful people, from early investors starting off, but when the rand was sitting at maybe 8 or 9 to 1, we're looking at nearly 21 to 1 today, to those that are just wanting to accumulate their money with their friends and buy something small, to those that have got a more serious plan B to actually do their full relocation, to those that are wanting a plan B to get residency where life continues in South Africa, but they've got an asset overseas and to realize that as a dream.
Wonderful. So maybe just tell us a little bit what differentiates you then from the other guys, because from the one there you picked up the brochure. What unique value propositions or services do you offer your clients?
So Neil, the one thing that I've been true to form is that from the launch and start of Cypriot Realty in 2008, I've only focused on this as a country. So I don't dabble in other countries. I don't see the swings and roundabouts and look to say, well, like, for example, in 2013, when Cyprus had the collapse of one of their banks and nobody was touching anything to do with the country, people were trying to scramble out and, sell off assets. I still stuck along. I didn't look at the other countries. And I believe to be a specialist, especially in the offshore arena where things can be so tricky and there's circles and trends and ups and downs, the main reason that we've been so successful is that I know the country exceptionally well. We actually have relocated here a number of years ago, but I come back to South Africa many times to do client meetings, presentations, exhibitions. But we've got a really solid network that we've spent the last 16 years just to hone in. I don't take any nonsense when it comes to not delivering service, but I want to make sure that my potential investors who become my friends, I'm holding their hand. So no query is too small. From getting my kid into med school in Nicosia to I'm wanting to do a full lock, stock, barrel transfer everything across, including my fur babies. This is where we have a big difference. We're not a real estate agency, so we're not here to just sell property. We are holding your hands and helping you make your plan be more of a reality and making it easy to happen.
Wonderful. So now tell us, Jenny, why Cyprus? What are the significant advantages of investing into Cyprus compared to other countries or regions, and particularly for South Africans? I mean, you mentioned obviously the currency thing, so it's not cheap. So maybe tell us why.
Well, Neil, over the last couple of months, we've seen a lot of the European country permanent residency programs close or change. So one of the big shocks to many investors was the fact that the Portugal program basically now states you can get residency, but it's no longer backed on the fact that you're buying real estate. Greece earlier this year upped their minimum investment to 800,000 euros. Those on the more populated areas, or they've kept it lower down for the more remote islands. We've seen the fact that Ireland's closed their program. Australia's already looking at that. Spain has decided they're either going to close their residency program completely or double the investment to €1 million. We've seen all of these changes. Malta also is not that attractive anymore because of the huge amount of assets you've got to show. But yet Cyprus still has been voted as offering the best permanent residency program on the purchase of real estate, where you don't have to live there. Once you become a permanent resident, you're entitled to become part of Cyprus's national health. That means bye-bye Discovery insurances, bye-bye oxygen. You basically can come across and get first world wonderful medical care. And it's quite important for people as they're getting more advanced in their years, and also for those that are wanting to look at a relocation option, purely because this is an island in the Med, ex-British colony. You drive on the correct side of the road on the left. Everybody speaks English, and you have this amazing Mediterranean lifestyle with the wonderful food, all of the outdoor activities. Cyprus is also not politically involved in any of the huge things that are facing some of the European countries. She's her own independent country, although Greek is the main language. She's got nothing to do with Greece. The ex-British colony aspect has stood her in good stead because everything's based on the British. Legal, banking, education. I mentioned driving on the correct side of the road. She's got 2 international airports, a lot of harbors where people can actually come in with their boats. They have massive cruise liners coming into the environment. But yet, Neil, this is very similar to a lot of the lifestyle aspects that our South Africans love. Golf, wine estates, wine tasting, ecotourism. You're a culture buff and you want to get seeped up into the older UNESCO sites. Well, guess what? We've got a medieval bridge tour. We can go and check out about 14 or 15 bridges. So things like that, you can really be immersive into the whole culture. And Cyprus is very authentic. They don't claim to be a country for all, or for to bend their rules, whatever it is, but they make it very easy for foreigners to come and live in the island. This is a country with 10,000 years of history, Neil. We've had the Phoenicians, the Ottomans, the Romans, you name it, that all come in and had their little touch on the island, which is why you can see it's the country it is today.
Wonderful. So let's talk a bit more about securing residency in Cyprus.
Yes.
What are the options available for investors interested in obtaining residency or even citizenship through investment in Cyprus? And what are the key requirements and benefits that are associated with these programs?
Right. So first of all, Neil, the one program that is really still very, very popular because it's the easiest way to get in is their fast track permanent residency program. Basically, the investor needs to invest a minimum of 300,000 euros. It can be a maximum of 2 properties as long as the minimum investment is 300,000. It is quite exclusive in the fact that it can only be a newly built property or off plan, or a property where transfer has not yet taken place. So it cannot be a resale. And unfortunately, it only applies to 2 generations in the same family line. So that'll be the main investor and all dependent children up to the age of 25. So as long as they haven't turned 26 yet and are still full-time students, that whole family will be able to qualify on that front. For those investors, Neil, that don't quite have that kind of money right now, we've also got a program called the Slow Track program. The reason I call it a slow track is because it'll take you around about 4 years to become a permanent resident, as opposed to the fast track, where basically within 4 to 6 months, you become a permanent resident. The beauty about both programs is that there's definitely a niche in terms of what the investors are looking for. So example, on the slow track program, Neil, you might say to me, listen, Jen, I've got 3 of my mates, we're not related, we all want to pool our money together. Can we buy property jointly and then each apply for residency? Answer is yes, you can do that. However, having you said to me, listen, I want to buy it with my mate for 300,000 euros on the fast track, no can do. It's only for a investor, spouse, and dependent children up to the age of 25. We also have other programs, Neil, for people that are wanting to do the immigration into Cyprus, where they wanted to come on board to maybe look to work. It is quite a strict program that requires a lot of health checks, etc., proof of a job, proof you have a roof over your head. But the main interest that we're getting from a lot of South Africans is either the fast track, I'm in, got it done, or the slow track, as I mentioned, which takes you 4 years to become a permanent resident.
Okay, wonderful. I like the analogy of the fast and slow.
Yes, exactly.
Really
Neil, you did ask me to check a little bit about the citizenship through investment.
Yes,
Cyprus
absolutely.
no longer has that as available anymore. What basically happened in 2020, just around COVID time, there was a whole big rigmarole that happened where they found that the citizenship through investment program was not due diligently done. There were some nefarious characters who had managed to get onto the program. What the Cypriot government did, I took my hat off to them, is when the president heard about this whole big thing that had basically come off on Al Jazeera, it was a big expose. He called an emergency cabinet meeting. They sat around the table and he said, right, we are effectively closing the program now. They didn't put their head under the sand and say, look, we're going to find out who it is. Is it a politician? Are there any tenderpreneurs? Has anybody got their hand out? They made a decision to say, we're closing it until we can find out what's happened. So unfortunately, no longer can investors buy their way in to get a Cypriot passport. There's only 3 ways to do it. Unfortunately, it doesn't apply to you, Neil, because you're married, because the one way is through marriage. So if you happen to marry a Cypriot girl, a Cypriot boy, and you do your time once you've been through that spousal period of time, you will then be entitled through spousal rights to become a citizen. The second one is to do your time. Once you are a permanent resident, you physically have to live in Cyprus for a number of years, for a number of consecutive days in each year. And once your clock has gone up to that period, they will then allow you to put your application in. And the third way, but it's very onerous and there's a lot of areas of room there, is via business. But we're talking really, really big bucks to go in, huge, big setups. It can't just be an office where you're consulting. You need to employ a lot of locals. It has to be something that's worth of interest. So fortunately, no more can you buy your passport, but you can certainly get your residency, which is your first step anyway, if you're looking to make your plan be much more meaningful.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks for clarifying that. And then, given the global trend of immigration and relocation, where do you see Cyprus fitting into the picture for individuals or families looking to move abroad? Better opportunity.
Yes, well, so our first wave of the younger kind of more people wanting to do business on their own was with the war in Russia and Ukraine. So we had a lot of young Ukrainians who decided to escape the country, come to Cyprus, set up their shops, be their virtual company owners or whatever it was, because that was a way for them to still contribute to their families, but not necessarily have to go back and serve in the war. So we found it's very, very attractive. There was a huge flights coming in, lots of people coming here to make Cyprus their base. Now we're a couple of years down the line and these people are saying, wow, this is a place we can actually stay, raise our family. We love what's on offer. All of the private schools are linked to British systems. So you, at least when your kid goes through the tertiary education facilities, Neil, they're going to have a degree that they can actually practice in the EU. We've also found now with the war in Israel that a lot of Israelis before the war had actually found Cyprus as a wonderful place for them to buy real estate relatively cheaply. I mean, if you compare a 2-bedroom apartment in Tel Aviv, we're looking at around 1.2 million euros equivalent. And here you can buy 3 or 4 properties in Cyprus for the same value, where you can rent them out. they were coming literally across on the plane load to come through and have a look to buy. With the war in Israel, of course, a lot of people were sent back to fight in the war, do their service to the country. So we found that has certainly put a dampener, not completely wiped out the market, but it's certainly changed that. But yet we're finding more and more people are very attractive to what Cyprus has to offer. Not only is she still a full member of the EU, always will be, but this is an island that is somehow out of the whole realm of what's happening in terms of the mainland in where Europe is itself. There are opportunities. Cyprus has discovered natural gas in her shores, and that means basically anybody that's in that kind of industry, they are soon going to be pushing that button where the natural gas is going to be pumped out into the whole of the European Union through the various pipelines that have come through in the country. Education's huge. Remember, just going back on the natural gas, Neil, wherever you've got platforms in the sea, you've got people that are staffing it. They've got family on land. They've got kids, people, grannies, aunties. So that whole infrastructure is there to support that whole environment. Cyprus is also very much open for business when it comes for companies wanting to set up or re-domicile their head offices. For example, if you've got a big IT company or something in that industry, you want to re-headquarter, have Cyprus as the base, all of your staff members get permanent residency immediately. They can work. So there's a lot of incentives that this country is now becoming quite appealing. Then we're talking about the tax. I mean, the lowest form of corporate tax in the EU with Ireland, your personal tax structure, your first 19,500 euros per year is tax exempt. It's around about 380,000 Rand per year. Then, of course, you've got a very favorable tax structure. VAT sits at 19%, but a lot of products are 0 or lower VAT rated. So it's very much a country that is open for business and open for people to come and relocate.
Absolutely. So let's move a little bit on to the real estate side of things. You know, what trends or developments do you foresee in Cyprus real estate market in the coming years? I mean, what are you getting? And how do you anticipate these changes impacting property investment opportunities in the region?
So, Neil, we've already seen from year on year, from last year to now, a trajectory that is literally going like this. So investors that are coming into the market now, they're still on the bottom to quarter part of this trajectory because there's a huge demand, especially properties that are around the coast. Everybody wants to be within a 7-kilometer wedge of the Mediterranean. You want to be able to see the sea, smell the ocean, maybe if you're lucky, hear the waves crashing on the shore. And this is living the Mediterranean dream. And that's where a lot of investors that are coming in are looking to buy the resales, the one bedrooms, the two bedrooms. Cyprus has got a very, very buoyant tourism market, Neil. So we're finding that as long as there's a cold winter in Northern Europe, a lot of people are coming for December, January, February, 3 months of the year to escape those horrible, snowbound environments where you can swim in the morning in the Med, drive an hour up to the mountains, get a bit of skiing, come down in the afternoon, play some golf. So you've got a very wild, very mild Mediterranean climate, yes. In terms of opportunities, what is relatively untapped at the moment are retirement villages. And the main reason for that, Neil, is that the current legislation, when it comes to inheritances, is that the law protects the person that owns an asset. By law in Cyprus, only 1/4 of your estate can get passed outside of the family, but the balance stays within the family. That's why the Cypriots are very land rich. They've got their own properties. It's been stepped down from great granny, etc., down through the actual generations. So currently the law states that if somebody passes on, their child has the right to move into that property. Little bit of a touch and go if you're wanting to have quieter times. You really want the youngsters moving in with tricycles and buzzing around and up early to get to school. But there is a gap in the market, and we are busy exploring some opportunities that we'll be able to start promoting that quite soon, and having a look to see how we can add value. So that's a huge big growth opportunity. Another big one, Neil, is that in the province of Paphos, which I say is the Cape Town of Cyprus, the American University of Beirut has just set up massive campus in this area. They've got a whole lot of degrees that are very appealing to students. So student accommodation is going to be the next big thing that's coming on board. So watch this space, because we're going to be getting involved with some serious players in this environment to be able to have that as an offering. And as we know, it's a very successful model around the world. I personally was involved a little bit in South Africa looking at that as well. And, it's going to be it's the egg. You just want to let this thing sit down, mature, students coming, going all the time, but yet you're reaping the good euro rental income.
Wonderful. Okay, you mentioned Paphos. But
Yes.
which areas in Cyprus do you consider investment hotspots? What types of properties or opportunities can you expect to find in these areas?
Right. So Neil, there basically are four main cities. So if you're coming from South Africa on one of our property tours, and we're going to talk about at the end of the session, you're going to land at Larnaca Airport. Larnaca is traditionally the older, more industrial city in the island. A lot of the refineries, a lot of the the older mechanical sort of industrial areas are there. So although it's a good way to go in, we call it the land and splatter city because people land there and then they go around the island. Capital city is Nicosia. You don't want to be there. It's kind of 2/3 up on the island. You can't see the sea. It's actually in almost like a soup bowl. So in the month of August, it can get to 43, 44, 45. Wow, it gets hot. We have on the southern part of the island, Neil, a city called Limassol. And this is what I call the Santon of Cyprus, because we have our seriously wealthy oligarchs, the big boys that are playing in all of the industries, Petronas, Petrobras, BP, Total, ENI, they're all are headquartered there. This is where you're going to get your traffic jams. This is where you get all your high-rise buildings. This is where one-bedroom apartments started around 1.6, 1.7 million euros. This is where your penthouse is looking at 25, 30 million euros.
Wow.
So this is by far where the boys with the big money are playing. And it's always going to hold its value, Neil, because this is where these guys are wanting to play. But this is for big boys. On the western side, where we focus a lot of our investment and a lot of our activity, is, as I called, the Cape Town of Cyprus. This is where the green lung is, all of the olive groves are, a lot of the agricultural pods are. When the snow melts in the mountains, I didn't even mention that, for 3 months it snows. When it melts down onto the western side, it fills the rivers, it fills the lakes. This is the low-rise city of the island, so they don't allow any high-rise buildings. It's definitely the lifestyle part of the island, and this is where we focus a lot.
Great. So maybe for investors who could be new to, say, offshore property investment, what advice or tips would you give them to navigate the process successfully and maximize their return in the investment?
So, Neil, the first thing is take your time, do your due diligence and research. There are a lot of people out there playing in the space. Some of them are new on the block. You don't know who they are. Some of them are, kind of, we used to call them the Bucky Brigades, where they've got a little small construction company. Not saying don't consider them, but be aware. This is a very hard-earned brand that our investors are bringing across. It's an emotional decision because you're taking it out of South Africa. You're sending it offshore. You want it to work for you. Make sure that you're dealing with reputable people. This is also another important factor. Come across on an inspection trip. Don't rely on what you read on the internet. That picture looks great. Shift the camera just 5 degrees and it's next to something that might not really be what you think it is. I mean, if I have a look at how people buy property in South Africa, if you're reeler or semi-grating from Joburg to Cape Town or vice versa, you're going to get on a plane. You're going to kick the tires. You're going to open the doors. You're going to check it out. Why would you not do the same when you're buying into Europe? So that's the most important thing. Second tip I can give, Neil, is think about what is your short, medium, and long-term goal with your investment property. Are you wanting to get in, crack on the rental markets in summer where you're going to get everybody coming around? They arrive lily white, they lie in the sun, they leave lobster red, they're renting your apartment, they're having a great time. Or do you want to maybe target a long-term tenant where you've got a 1 or 2 or 3-year lease in place? Is there somewhere that maybe you're wanting to use as accommodation for your child who's going to varsity, or granny and granddad that you're wanting to retire in a nice warm climate? Or is there somewhere that way down the line, maybe 5 to 10 years, you yourself want to be able to move into? So very clearly identify those 3 pillars about what that property will then need to work for you. And then we can help you on this side to make sure that you're actually achieving your goals.
Right. So how can you get your investors or potential people that are interested updated on market trends, changes in Cyprus's real estate landscape? Do you have any specific resources or sources of information that you rely on, or maybe you could share just to inform, your services?
Yeah, so basically, Neil, I subscribe to a lot of the industry standard publications that are bringing out the stuff all the time, and I kind of filter through what is relevant and what is not. We send out regular newsletters, and like yourselves, we'd like to keep our investors well informed. We would like to make sure that we're giving a very balanced view of the island. We showed its warts and all. Not everything is always great. Right now, it's definitely a buyer's market, because what happened with the war in Israel affecting some of the prices, you're no longer are people coming in and just snapping and taking things. So there's a room for negotiation. But again, you need to be very aware of some of the publications. What I will do, Neil, is I'll share with your viewers and your readers some of the links that I subscribe to that I can actually they comfortably refer, so they can pick up some of the information. Again,
Wonderful.
in the industry, you get quarterly reports that come out in terms of the hard data, how many properties were sold, what was the size, what is the value. That's great to know. But if that doesn't really matter within your short, medium, and long-term planning, it's just information that you can put in the background on your file 13 for when you actually need it.
Yeah, but I think, as you said right at the outset, you're the one to hold people's hands along the way. And I think you want people to come to you because I think, as you say, you have to come to Cyprus to kick the tires and that kind of thing. So I think that's definitely the way I would advise. So can you just elaborate just a bit more on the legal and regulatory framework for property investment in Cyprus? Are there any specific considerations or regulations that investors need to be aware of before investing?
Yes. So Neil, the very most important thing is to get all your paperwork in place. With South Africa being a grey listed country currently still, there is one extra piece of documentation that is a non-negotiable. You have to get your updated clean police clearance certificate, because Cyprus is not familiar with the laws and regulations in South Africa. Every bit of original certificate needs to be apostilled. You can either go the slow track with Durko, or I can refer you to one of my providers who can get your certified documentation done within a couple of working days, all legitimate, of course. So in terms of somebody wanting to come across on the residency program, Neil, we would need unabridged original marriage certificates, unabridged original birth certificates for all children under the age of 25, and of course that golden police clearance certificate. Once we have all of that in file, I have a lot of clients who've come across, bought a property. Once they've got that documentation, they then start the process to get their permanent residency into the system. Once that's all done, the lawyers in Cyprus will actually guide you through the whole process. It's a very, very well-versed and a slick process in terms of what needs to be done. Your sales contract gets lodged at the land registry. That lodging means nobody can sell a property from under your feet. It's legitimately yours. You can do what you like with it. And we are here to make sure that you're protected every step of the way. The other important factor, Neil, I kind of briefly alluded to, is the importance of setting up a will in a different jurisdiction other than South Africa. Because what happens is, on the eventuality of the death of yourself or your spouse, you don't want to have to wait the 4 to 6 years that it can take for that estate to be wound up. So that's one of the other considerations that we help out when you come across to look. We'll set up the appointment with a lawyer, with an accountant. If you want to set up a business, we're here to make your plan be a reality.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jenny. So lastly, Jenny, last question. Maybe could you share some success stories or maybe some case studies of investors or people who relocated or you worked with Cypriot Realty, just in terms of what they were trying to achieve, their goals, and how did you help them to achieve their objectives?
Yeah. So a very interesting thing, Neil. So we've been going, as I mentioned, for 16 years, since 2008. And we've seen a lot of different South Africans who have wanted to dip their toe into the water, maybe do a full relocation. We've had a number of families who've come across, put their children into the local schools. So they've actually gone through the whole process. One of my eldest clients, their son actually managed to go all the way through to the matric equivalent. He's now studying in the UK. And he was just saying, what amazing opportunity to be exposed to that whole international markets. I've had a number of investors who bought portfolios of properties that they're renting out on the short term and the long term to kind of diversify themselves as well. Then I've had, my most senior client. She was a lady at the time. She was 78. She moved from the Western Cape. She came across, absolutely loves the lifestyle on offer. She sold her place there, and this is kind of like her new life. And then we have the people that are wanting to start companies that are coming across. They might even want to rent to start. But this has been a very, very diverse clientele that we've had, and nobody's fitted one complete matrix. It all depends at the time. And back in the day when it was 6 to 1, 8 to 1, we're now 21 to 1. Slightly different. You might have the champagne taste, but a beer budget. But we can help you.
Well, we hope that we see with this what the outcome is going to be of the elections and whether it's going to impact the rand. We're hoping it's going to improve, and
Yes.
then we can invest our bucks back offshore again into euros and pounds and dollars again. So yeah.
Yes.
So Jenny, just in closing, I think what's very important, I think people who are interested now, they would like to come to you Now, you offer a very unique service, which is you do a property tour in Cyprus. Tell us a bit about that.
We do indeed. So, Neil, I know it's going to be on your website, but this, in essence, is our schedule for the year. What we've tried to do is tie our tour dates with the holidays in South Africa. So we've got one that's starting this weekend. This is oversubscribed. We've got another one coming in July. But then we've left August because the air flights from Africa into Europe are hideous. They're actually revolting. So we then started again from the beginning of September, again to tie up with some of the holidays that are happening in the September month. This is basically your LSD trip, look, see, discover. And we use this as an opportunity for you to come across. It's a very relaxed way. It's not like we're having a huge big bus and we're pummeling everyone on the bus and we're kind of all trundling around. It's a completely customized and personalized offer. We will hold your hand from the beginning. We'll help you get your documentation together if this is something you're wanting to look at. And while you're in Cyprus, we'll show you around the different opportunities, look at all of the projects available. In the evenings, we'll do some amazing things, go up to the old town. You'll get a real taste for the country, which is important. And then at the end of the tour, you say, you know what, Jen, right now, I can't really do it. There is absolutely no obligation to buy, Neil. This is not a close the door, lock it up, and make people sign on a dotted line. This is a very big emotional, financial, and sometimes a physical decision for people that are going to be leaving loved ones back in South Africa. So jump onto your website. I know you've got the tours identified there on my website as well. Let us know when you wanted to come through. Although we've packaged it 7 days, you're welcome to come anytime at your direct convenience. This just happens to be the time we're going to be in Cyprus, so I'll be there to be with you during the tour period.
Right. Just give us the contact details, your website, and even you can share your email address. I mean, next time I think we can actually drop a QR code.
Yeah. It's cypriotrealty.com and it's 083 4488 734, jenny@cypriotrealty.com.
Wonderful. Great. I think that's such a wonderful experience. I mean, I've been lucky enough to have that experience with you guys. So, and I encourage anybody who's interested to come along, spend a few days with Jenny and a team, and to experience the wealth of absolute beauty and just the wonderful. If you look at just Paphos as a venue, what a beautiful, beautiful area it is. As you said, it's like the Cape Town of Cyprus, and which it really is. I concur with that. So Jenny, Ellinas, thank you very much. It's been absolutely wonderful chatting to you. As I say to everybody, I encourage you to get in contact either with us or Real Estate Investor. We are running a series, as I say, in Real Estate Investor magazine on Cyprus, and Jenny is obviously sharing a lot of her insights, her information on how to get into the Cyprus market, whether to relocate, whether to immigrate, whatever it may be. And just go to either rei.co.za, go to cypriotrealty.com, or just click on read the articles. You can see in the foreground there's she's featured in one of our magazines, all on our homepage on our website. Ellinas, CEO and founder of Cypriot Realty, wonderful chatting to you, and we look forward to chatting again in the future.
Thank you, Neil. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Cool.
Hi, everybody. I really encourage you to grab your suntan lotion, book your ticket, and come and join me on one of the property inspection tours we are holding for this year. We've got a schedule lined up. It's going to be a completely customized personal tour for you to look, see, and discover if Cyprus can be part of your plan B into Europe. Think about it. Jump onto the website. Neil's got a whole lot of information that's under one of the Cyprus tags. Jump onto my website, have a look, and I really look forward to seeing you in Cyprus.
Awesome.